Hello, I am the Dark Fae, and welcome back to Confessions of a First-Time Dungeon Master. So, I am at my parents' place, with all the virus stuff going on. We've been starting to play online exclusively, and it's harder for me to record things. So I'm kind of late, a couple sessions behind, but I'm hoping I can either combine these or upload them pretty quickly to catch up, since we have our session 11 tomorrow as I'm recording this, and this is session 9, so let's get into it. Okay, so for session 9, they had just apprehended a couple of thugs at the Dragon's Roost, and I have my notes here. They kind of did some stuff with Fairnay and kind of you see, appraising Basil's ring, and this will all be in the previous episode, but so they started the session with they had agreed to meet Fairnay across the street from Giraffe's, the Gnomish inventor's place, to kind of investigate a warehouse that the thugs had kind of given up as what their headquarters or their base in the Siskoran Keep was. And they had also accepted a couple of errands just to pick up a few favors for Fairnay, so that was kind of where we started. Before the session, one of my players mentioned to me that they had to leave early, so we kind of ended up doing half and half. So he was there for the beginning part where we're running errands, and then they kind of split off. So 5 of them and Fairnay went to explore this warehouse, and then I kind of did a little one-on-one session with him. And he went to explore Miss Scorsavea, the supplier with whom they were tracking down the lead of the poisoned spices. So first we did the errands, and that wasn't super difficult. I didn't really prep for those. The only thing I prepped was what items that they would be picking up. They went to Lydia Germain's, the apothecary, and she gave them a kind of just a chest that had a couple potions and a couple elixirs in it. And then they also went to Narman's, the blacksmith's, and picked up a couple of silver daggers. And so for this session, prepping was pretty easy. At least the beginning part was pretty fun. I think I went down Miss Scores, the supplier's route, with the whole poison issue a lot more, because I think it's much more interesting. One side is much more fantastical and it's fantastical and leads them to a more interesting area, whereas the warehouse and the thugs, that's more political and intrigue, and there's less action they can take, and it's much more waiting around. But anyways, so they picked up the stuff from the 2 NPCs, and then they went to meet Fairnay. And I had some difficulties, I think. The session went well, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. It's just, I felt weird playing an NPC to go along with their party, because, as the DM, I, already know, kind of, since I know everything, most everything, it's difficult for me, at least maybe I just don't have the experience to, keep the DM and the NPC, separate, even though sometimes I feel the NPC is there to kind of help the players, maybe find things that they didn't think to look for, and stuff like that. Luckily, it wasn't, too bad. There wasn't, I didn't have to, take over or anything like that. They actually did a pretty good job of investigating, and they went down one of the routes that I actually had planned out. Missed a couple possible things, but it worked out in the end. But I don't know if I really like playing an NPC that is like traveling and adventuring with their party, and I don't know if I'm going to do it again. Fairnay is a pretty high level rogue, since she follows Zenaria, the Dark Dancer, goddess of assassins and trickery and all that. So being a rogue makes sense for her. But I don't know, I feel like I don't need the character to necessarily give them like the hints and like the observational details and stuff for like things they might investigate, things they might look at, and it's kind of up to them whether or not they find it or not. So like in this case, narrative wise, it made sense for her to go along with them or like lead them there. Maybe I probably could have gotten away with not having her, now that I think about it. But it was something I thought I might try, because that did happen a few times in like the early campaigns when I was a player, because we were playing Waterdeep Dragon Heist, and like Renaer came along and he was like a fighter, and we also had the Tower Lord, I think, help fight with us. But so I thought I could try it out. I didn't really like it. We'll see how it goes in the future. But anyways, they went to this warehouse, and our groups always have a really hard time with climbing. Like, I don't know, climbing's just really hard, because maybe I shouldn't ask for athletics checks to like, but it is like a sheer just brick like wall, like building, and like to climb up that, it's not that easy. So anyways, they decided to climb in through one of the windows. There were a couple other access points, like the cellars. The front doors were guarded. They could have also tried to like sneak upstairs if they wanted to, but eventually they all get in. And I mentioned that there is like a carpet that's like kind of laid out in the back, and they do some an investigation check to see if there's anything beneath the carpet, which there is. I put the carpet there for a reason, so they would maybe look. And the carpet actually can be lifted away, and there's a kind of a pit, kind of like a sewer grate, but less gross, that just kind of leads about 100 feet underground. So they decide to kind of follow that route instead of exploring the rest of the warehouse, which is fine. The rest of the warehouse, kind of the front part, was just guarded, and then upstairs there was like more like concrete and like paper information that they could have looked through and investigated and found for plans of what this group is doing here, and what and like why, and like what their next steps are, kind of. But they went underground. They found like an armory, and two closed doors. One where they, like, after perception checking, they hear a lot of like footsteps, snoring and stuff. Basically, one of the rooms is a barracks of some sort, so there's a lot of like thugs, more green cloak masked people who are there sleeping and bunked there. And then the other room, there's more sleeping noises, but they're more like grunty and like guttural. And inside there's like an Etten, and there is an ogre. Yes, not a troll, ogre. And beyond that, there's another passageway. So they decided to sneak past the sleeping giants, ogres, to investigate the passageway. And then here is kind of where I didn't do a very good job, I think, because these tunnels, they encountered tunnels like a long time ago on their way to the Yurkasi forest, which is northwest of the keep, and right now they're kind of in the southeast corner of the keep. But actually these tunnels kind of end up snaking around and connecting with part of the tunnels that maybe they found, or like a different set of tunnels. But it goes for miles, so it's quite possible that they could have been following this for days. So as the NPC who recognizes that what these tunnels potentially are and what it could mean and like how far of travel that might be, I like persuade them to go back. And this is also kind of as like a DM thing to like trip one of the things, because the encounter I wanted to have was the Etten and the ogre. And I did actually plan this beforehand. I didn't just add this in spontaneously, but there is like a magical alert for things coming out of the tunnel in case like there are monsters or like other people of their battalion coming through, so that they'll be alerted and they won't be surprised by like some monster of Nelea's brood coming to slaughter them all. So when they come back, they trip this like magical alert, which is written in Giant, oddly enough, because Basil has comprehend languages, and even though it's not really runic language, I went with it. And so alert trips, and then they get into combat. Now this combat I thought was a good encounter, but it got a little bit clunky here and there just because of like the mechanics, and I kind of messed up the mechanics in some of it, because it was like as soon as combat started, if they were within 30 feet of the Etten or the ogre, and this room is pretty small, so feasibly they would be, as long as they were like in this chamber, they would have to roll a wisdom saving throw. And then I had a set of 8 different possible effects. Some were like you gain advantage or disadvantage on your attack rolls, stuff like that, or they were negative, so like your attack rolls have disadvantage, or attacks against you have advantage, or you fall prone at the end of your turn, stuff like that. And because I wanted this encounter to be a little bit different, a little bit more difficult than just like the standard things that just like swing at you, as Ettins and ogres are kind of wont to do. And there is a reason behind why they had this weird aura around them. They did hear kind of a voice that's like, ha ha ha, why you've come out to play, sort of thing. So there is some sort of force or greater power behind this, potentially. They don't know. So anyways, combat happens. They recover a javelin of lightning, which is one of the magic items. The other one was a berserker axe, but they didn't really kill the Etten. They like incapacitated it with Tasha's hideous laughter, and then ran out, because the ogre and the Etten can do quite a bit of damage. But they eventually ran out because the alarm was sounding, and I need to be a bit better about like when they're discovered or when they trip alarms and then like things are mobilizing to like chase them, because I never really like chase them. I do have a reason for that for this one, since they don't want to spread alarm in the city that they're there, and it's the dead of night, and like this would bring a lot of attention to what they're doing, and they're not these like this group of thug people. They aren't really in the keep, like they're not targeting the keep, they're targeting something else, so they wouldn't really want to like have all of their stuff interrupted. So that was kind of where we left off for that group. And then our fighter Tyrol, we had like a call later on, and we did a little bit of RP for him investigating Miss Corsalea, the supplier. So he kind of goes to the apartment building where American Valkyrie had investigated beforehand, so he knows the way. So he gets there, kind of forces open the door, and there's 2 rooms. The first room is kind of the living room. There's like a kitchen and like a little reading area with some bookshelves, and also like a dirty fireplace. So he does some investigation there. He finds some scraps of paper that look like a recipe in the fireplace, and some like herbology, botany books that are on the shelf. And then there's not really too much else in the room, so he forces open the door to the bedroom. And this is where it gets fun, because this is the part that I prepped for and that I'm really excited for. So inside the room is basically just tons and tons of like these mushrooms that are just like growing out of the walls, out of the wood. Some of them are like almost like tree-like stalks with like large mushrooms like kind of protruding. And then all of them are like, it's nighttime, so all of them are emitting these like blue, glowing kind of blue specks, these spores. And on the bed is Miss Corsilvea. He's kind of like catatonic, almost in a coma-like state, which Terrell discovers through a medicine check. And I have plans for why he's like this. He's been exposed to the toxin, and these mushrooms are kind of a altered version of the original that grows, and like with prolonged exposure to the spores of these mushrooms, these altered mushrooms, I made a disease for it, and like and kind of a process of infection. So it will take like consecutive failed saving throws, constitution saving throws basically. On the first you're poisoned, and then on the first you take poison damage and then gain a point of exhaustion. If you are continually like breathing in these spores, you'll have to just make another saving throw, at which case you become poisoned and infected. And then on a third failure that takes place after one D6 days, 1d4 and 1d6 days, then you become catatonic. So this is what's happened to Miss Clore, and they don't know how long it's been. I need to figure out kind of how long it's been, because it's really important that I know the timing of this so I can make his saving throws accordingly. Because it could be real bad if he fails his next saving throw given where he is now. But anyways, so Terrell kind of investigates. He fails his saving throw, the initial one, so he gets exhausted and takes some poison damage. So he immediately kind of just cuts one of the mushroom specimens and takes it and kind of flees. Luckily, he closes the apartment door behind him, so the spores don't like keep getting out. The bedroom door he can't close anymore because it's broken. The lock's broken. So that was kind of his portion of it. He ended up kind of like bumming it on Fernay's like store's stoop. He was like, I don't know, we didn't set a place to meet and they don't really have a place to stay. Well, they do, but not a great one. So he ended up just kind of resting, trying to rest there, trying to get rid of his exhaustion. After this session, it was a lot of rolling. I think that's the most dice rolling, because I also forgot to mention that during combat, while they were fighting at the top of the initiative order, shadows came up from their shadows as like an extra little like horror like side effect from like some magical entity or like some sinister thing going on. And actually did make little dudes. So like these are the shadows, and then this was like the armored ogre, and then this was the Etten. Most of the time I just take these from D&D Beyond or like any D&D like monster manual image. So this was just a lot of rolling. And while I like it, like I like creating like unique encounters and unique mechanics, I gotta be better about like how much rolling I think I'm doing versus my players. Because again, with 6 people, combat already takes a really long time. I had it in Vernay, so it was still 6 because Terrell wasn't there. But it's a lot. So I think, but after this session, I wasn't really too like concerned with anything. I think like because I think again the session went well. I remember I had a little bit of trouble prepping because like we didn't really quite get to do a wrap up at the end of both of their like perspective like little quests. So it was kind of difficult to know what they would want to do next. Again, I feel like they really only give what I hand them. There's not a lot of like this happened and I want to investigate it more. But they seem to be kind of going along with Fernay and like her lines of work, which I'm pleased with because I like Fernay, she's cool. But that might be more difficult if things arise because of what's going on with these hooligans and their grand plan. So we'll see. So yeah, that was session 9, and I'll probably film session 10 like right after this, doing D&D prep, so might as well get all my D&D stuff going today. But yeah, thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!